Don't tell my client that you're going to send them weekly updates and then not do it. If you're going to say, that you're going to be following up, you better follow through with that follow up.
Yeah, set it. I'm going to get right into it.
All
right, let's do it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Design, Build, Sell. We're your hosts,
Sarah Bennett,
Alisha Dobby,
and RB Gallup. Today, we are talking about the perception of perfection, what that means to each of us, and how it pertains to our industry.
Like RB said, we're talking about perfection, or rather the perception of perfection and how it affects each of our industries. And also, slight note, we know that the word perfect, none of us are perfect, obviously, as much as we try to be.
Only God is perfect.
Only God is perfect.
Amen.
Amen. Didn't know we were going to church today.
It's true, though.
But we do know that in our very demanding industries that it is important to strive for perfection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into this as well, but what do people expect from us? Mm-hmm. And what level of perfection is obtainable and deliverable?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Mm-hmm. So, RB, would you consider yourself a perfectionist?
Not really.
Okay.
If it's something I'm passionate about and striving to obtain excellence in, I would really put a lot into it and deliver the best I can at the moment. I am a perfectionist in the sense that I'm never satisfied with the current level of whatever I'm doing.
Right.
So I'm always trying to kind of sharpen the saw and refine whatever that is, whether it's growing the business, building nicer homes, working on my relationship and my family. I hold myself to a very high standard, but I understand it is growth. And it's just about putting that one foot in front of the other and gaining a little bit more knowledge or growth each day. But I also understand that perfect is the enemy of good. So what does that mean? And when it comes to business, and especially, is sometimes if you're wrapped up in trying to make a process so perfect or trying to make something just exceptionally perfect, you're going to miss the forest for the trees. I find a lot of people are slow to get back on responses. They're slow to deliver a product because they're just worried about it being perfect. And time is money at some point. You've got to be able to, number one, deliver that product and then improve it along the way. So I think it's a double-edged sword, perfection.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So do you hold your team to the same standards of this perfection, that the term what we're using, that you hold yourself to?
I think, going back to my view of, or going back to how you would view perfection in my life, I think that's growth and hard work. I'm trying to really grind it out, work hard, learn and apply new skills every day as much as I can. And some people might look at that and say, you're a workaholic. I'm not a workaholic. I really love my off time, but I'm passionate about work. It's kind of like a hobby for me. So when I do put the effort in, I'm maximizing my time with priorities. One thing I think I'm a little different than or I don't expect my employees to do the same. I expect my employees to work a normal 8 to 5 day. And that bleeds over sometime a little later and whatnot. But I want everyone to have a good home life, and I don't expect them to just constantly be grinding. Mm-hmm. I don't expect people to be as passionate about home building as I am. They're employees. This is their job. This is my business and my livelihood. So I understand a work-life balance for them, and I try really hard to respect that as much as possible. But I do want to keep setting the standard and hopefully leading by example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have to say, being one of your employees, I do think you lead by example. I think that your hard work and your passion and everything is kind of like contagious. Like when we're all together in the office and we're working and stuff, it's kind of like you kind of want to get on the same level as everybody around you. So I think it's good.
I think I was watching something. It was actually, I think, Gary Vee talking about why are you so energetic? And he said, well, if you're positive and your life revolves around positivity, your framework revolves around positivity, you're just going to be energetic. Mm-hmm. And I think that breeds positivity and energy. In those days where I might not be so positive, yeah, that's probably breeding some negativity too. So just try to have more of those positive days than negative, you know?
Absolutely.
Jinx.
Buy you a beer.
So Sarah, real estate. I feel like we're in the same market of luxury, obviously, but being on the construction side of things is different from real estate. So is there such thing as a perfect transaction?
I think that people have an idea of what they think a perfect transaction is, and that's before they really understand every single step to the process of a transaction. I have a lot of very smooth transactions. I do tell my clients, to expect probably something. I mean, the thing about the transaction is it's up to so many other people to be communicating with each other and to get stuff to each other in a timely manner, that it is bound to happen that a ball may be dropped or someone forgets to do something. But I would say that the majority of the transactions, as long as people communicate, I think that helps everyone throughout the whole transaction, makes it feel like a much more smooth. Even when something does go wrong, people know, like when they're communicating that, okay, we're going to get through this. This is the next step. And so people don't get as stressed and worried about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can relate to that. Communication's key.
Absolutely.
I mean, for everything in life, right?
Yeah. I tell my team all the time, and other agents that don't even work with me, or lenders that, ask me, what can I do to earn your business? And I tell them all the same thing. I said, I don't expect anybody to be perfect. People make mistakes. People mess up. But, I do expect, good communication and, just to work hard. And, we'll get through the problems when they arise.
Because they'll arise.
They sure will.
You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And it is hard communicating that down the line. Mm-hmm. And this world has grayed the line of what is acceptable. But being flexible, letting it beat off your back like a duck is helpful.
Oh, like a duck.
Never
What
heard
a great
that?
analogy. I've never heard
Just
that.
let it wash off, or what is it? Let it roll off your back, just like a duck.
I've heard roll off your back, but not the duck.
Well, I'll be honest. I jumble things up a lot.
You made it up.
This could be.
Yes. An RB analogy.
Yeah.
Those are always good.
So it's like flexibility. How
Yeah.
do you handle that problem? You communicate it.
Yep.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Just don't wait. I mean, if there's an issue, you waiting, dragging your feet, thinking things over, like that's not going to help anything. Just,
For
rip
sure.
the Band-Aid, talk to your client, to the other agent, whoever's involved, and take care of it.
And when you have a situation like that, what do you try to prepare for it at all?
Yeah, I always try to have a solution ready for when I'm about to give my clients terrible news. So whether that's, an inspection that went really poorly, or a house that didn't appraise, or just last week we had a title issue, a very weird title issue come up, like a week before the closing. I always, have a solution. And even if at the moment, if I don't have a solution, like that title issue, I had already talked to the attorney ahead of time, and I was able to tell my client with confidence, like, I've worked with this attorney many times over. I have all the confidence that they know what they're doing. They are telling me that it is going to get corrected, might cause a little bit of delay, but everything's going to be okay. So if I know that it's something that I'm not, if it's something that's just really is out of my wheelhouse, I always talk to the person who is in charge of that and make sure that before I talk to my client that I know what the next steps are.
I like it.
Yeah. Someone had recently said, you've heard the mantra, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Mm-hmm. There's a kind of a deeper dive on that where they said, that's not exactly what you want your employees or your teammates to feel. Mm-hmm. You want them to say, bring me some solutions with the problems, because that could come across as, hey, don't bring me problems, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Alisha,
Yes.
design is perfect all the time. So how do you manage that?
I mean, I feel like you have to, like, your perfection is just so important to some people, but do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No, I really don't.
Which just blows my mind. Like,
So I think when you're talking about design and construction, there's like a perfect standard for quality of work, like the craftsmanship.
Right.
That's where I don't waver. Like, I obviously expect certain things to be perfect, especially when there's like a design element tied to it. Because if something's not laid correctly or put at the right height, well, that's not what I was going for.
Like the penny tile in my daughter's bathroom that
Yes.
was laid incorrectly, and you were the one who like kept saying, nope, we're gonna make him redo it.
Yes, tile is a big one for me because, in my opinion, tile has to be installed perfectly.
Yeah.
It's just one of those elements that's like, you don't want someone to walk in and be like, oh, I see what you were trying to do. So yes, and I don't mind speaking on behalf of my clients for stuff like that either. But also, like, I understand that design isn't black and white, and I have that mindset with pretty much everything in my life. I'm very in the gray, so I'm able to adapt, and design is organic, and there's layers and elements to it. So if something has to change and it's like, all right, let's just shift a little bit, there's another way to get to that final destination that maybe my client was looking for. So I feel like there's a lot of layering for design for sure. So there's always room to shift. But I would say the quality and craftsmanship of work is where I would expect perfection.
Off of that, the perfection of execution and craftsmanship. And when I said I wasn't a perfectionist, I was thinking of employees and everything. But how do you get around that if you know that everyone's different? Not everyone has the same mindset, the same perfection,
Correct.
or the same understanding of craftsmanship.
Right.
So what we do is we have a system, and the system is what you try to make perfect. And it's never going to be. It's a constant process. But having a framework with a checklist and a schedule and a written list of standards is how you can achieve a high level of craftsmanship.
Absolutely.
Every time. You don't want one house to come out different than the other because Bob was managing it and Tim is better than Bob.
Right. There's got to be like consistency of it. And like you said, like when I first started thinking about this segment and we were talking about perfection, I'm like, well, that's very opinion based.
It's very subjective.
It's different to everyone. But then when you get talking about like what you do for a living and then like that type of perfection, then yeah, you could put a stamp on it if you need to.
Absolutely. So, we've gone over our own ideas of what perfection looks like, but we are talking about the luxury market. We are providing a luxury brand, product and service to our clients. So I think it's a common theme or thought for people when they're spending that amount of money, that they do demand perfection. So whether it's in the house they're building, whether it's the design they're creating, or the transaction that they're in the middle of, how do we help them achieve what that perfection is going to look like, and how do we set those expectations for what the client should expect?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean,
and now we're going to spend 45 minutes.
Well, I have to try to tackle that a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I set the tone at the beginning and for the company of what's expected of us from our clients, what our project managers expect from our subcontractors, and managing that reality. And I would say the customer expectation is a hard one because this is a big investment for them. And you get the comment often that I'm paying for an XYZ price house.
Yep.
I expect this.
Yep.
And we have to live within our realistic expectations of what's possible. So setting that with them with specs. So the specs call out what they're getting, how the process will go, and then managing to that. And being realistic, sitting down and someone says, I want to paint my walls high gloss, and I'm really not going to pay more for it, and I expect to be able to go in there with a flashlight and be able to see no brush marks or no spray marks, whatever it is.
Have you had this conversation before?
Yeah.
He's like, speaking
It
of from
seems very
experience.
personal.
There's something called the residential construction standards, and they're in a lot of cases really easy to obtain, but they're realistic. So like paint is a big one. Bless the painter's heart.
Oh, I know.
He got the hardest job in the housing process. He really does. Everyone sees his work. He's got to fix everyone else's mistakes. It's hard. So painting is a really hard one. You know, you have to be clear with that on the expectations. Okay, you look at the painting from 6 feet away at natural light with literally no flashlights. I remember early on watching my dad. He had a lady who came in with a plug-in, like, remember those silver lights you could buy at Home Depot? They looked like a mixing bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it had like a bulb in it. I remember it. She was like looking at the tile with that. And I'm like,
Are you really going to walk around your house with that? Like,
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah.
So we don't want to water down our product,
right.
but we have to try to set realistic expectations. It gets harder and harder with the labor pool out there too. You just have to have that good process to make sure they're elevating their game and meeting what you expect.
Absolutely. And I think we do have that at Gallup. I think we're good at it, and we're constantly evolving and working on it. But I think using Builder Trend is a huge thing for us because it shows the client everything.
Which goes back to that communication like we talked about earlier, that as long as they know what's going on, you know, and they can see, and because you can like share pictures and stuff on Builder Trend, is that right? Or is it just like messages?
I'll let you answer that.
Instagram's tough too. Social media, like we share everything, and they're all pictures of our work, and they look beautiful. But they're also scrolling through our feed and comparing it potentially to some builders out in California or in a very high-end market. The other day I heard about a house that was $20 million that they visited. You know, they said they had plaster walls. And I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
We're in different markets.
Yeah.
Right.
And different prices and different ranges there. So it's all about elevating your current market.
For sure.
And managing what the client is getting, you know, making sure they understand what they're getting.
Yeah. For the most part, I think we set them up for success for that.
But yeah, so, I mean, Alisha, you come from different markets. What have been the common problems in design and construction that you see the most complaints about? What are the areas that we should be setting better expectations in?
Okay. Most problem I've ever dealt with that a client brings to me is like communication from contractors, subs, like really that's probably a number one thing because I think people are very understanding of like lead times and delays. As long as things were ordered when they said they were ordered, but like most of the time that's out of our control. Communication's not. So that really truly has been like the biggest complaint I've had. Not being here on Gallup team, but like in Florida, really, I had that a lot. I did more project managing with my design work with the projects I did there. And it was a lot of like, you're the only person I can get in touch with to get an answer. And it's just like, well, I don't even know how to answer that question because I have no idea about plumbing and valves and, you know, stuff like that. So I was like playing middleman.
I mean, I totally, resonate with that. I feel like a lot of times when I'm working with a client on a new build project, you know, if it's a spec home or whatever it is, and that's the biggest complaint that I hear from clients too, is just the lack of communication from the builder. And I don't think that they mean to be like that. I think that they have probably a lot of houses that they're building and it can be very difficult to keep up with everybody. But one thing that I have found and what I've told some of the builders that I've worked with, not anyone in this room, obviously. But I've told builders, you know, don't tell my client that you're going to send them weekly updates and then not do it. You know, if you're going to say, you know, that you're going to be following up, you better follow through with that follow up. Yeah.
Set it.
Follow up, follow back, follow through is one of the things that we strive to do here at Team Zero.
I go back to Josh's media podcast and it's the same thing about be consistent. If you don't post every day, or if you do, and then all of a sudden you just stop, people are going to be like, well, that's not consistent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the more you're consistent, the better you get at it. And then you can catch things before they become a problem.
Yeah.
Hope so.
Hope so.
I mean, so.
You know, it's just,
There's always something, but how
is.
you handle it, is the big thing.
so how do you set expectations with our clients, Alisha? I've talked a little bit about my specs, but how would you set an expectation with a design client?
Right. So I tried to prepare the clients for like what the design process looks like and get them excited, because not all of it is exciting to some people. Like some of our clients do not care about appliances and they're like, whatever. And others are like, I can't wait to go look at these fridges. So I tried to just give them an idea of what we're doing, what comes next, why we pick these things first, because some people are surprised that before we even are like clearing their lot, that we're like picking their exterior finishes and picking out their appliances and plumbing, and then just explaining to them why we do these things. And I think, again, just like preparing them for the process, and it's another thing for them to also understand those layers of elements that I was talking about. I think
Layers and elements
layers and elements
and neutrals.
and neutrals, all my terminology I use all the time, because
It's a game changer.
because so I understand some people don't have an eye, or they have a hard time visualizing things out of nothing. And so they're like, well, how can I possibly pick this for my house if I don't know what that's going to be? So my job is to help them get those things together, or explain to them what it would look like, maybe throw in an inspiration photo, and then make them just feel confident and comfortable so we can move forward and keep everything on track.
I think you have a great personality for it too. I really,
Well, thanks.
I admire you choose your words very wisely, and you say less. I'm trying to do that. I am not there.
I am good to listen and then to speak. Yes. But I appreciate that compliment.
I hear you. I really hear you. All right. So Sarah, do you have a checklist when you bring on a new client? So if you have someone searching for a home or wanting to list their house?
Yes, RB, I do. Yes, we have a checklist. So typically, depending on if you're the buyer or the seller, like with the buyer, typically it's a lot of just like showing houses, stuff like that, getting that initial paperwork out of the way. Either way, once we have a client under contract, we use our system that we use is Monday.com. And so that's where we have all of our lead stuff, but it's also where we do our transaction checklists. And so we have a transaction coordinator. And once you get a property under contract, it breaks down what all the next steps are going to be and what phase of it is in the transaction, like due diligence, post due diligence. Now it's, waiting for underwriting once it's cleared. And it also says whose responsibility it is versus, our transaction coordinator versus the agent who has the client. And so that keeps people on track pretty well, because it does. I mean, I think when we first started the team, I took for granted the fact that I did know and was much more comfortable with the transaction process than some of my team members. And just because they were newer. And then I was like, oh yeah, probably even though I have the checklist up here, we got to have it on paper. And so, and that's one of Josh's like love languages is a checklist. My God, that guy loves an itinerary, a checklist. I mean, organization for him is, and it's important to me too. And I've definitely learned that it helps everyone to have those checklists in place.
Well, you're after my heart right there.
I was going to say him and Josh have that in common with these.
Yeah, my personal life is chaotic. And I don't mean that. I just like, I'm not organized by nature. But how do you take one person and turn it into a company? And that's what you just described. And that's the key to trying to systemize your business is you can't expect everyone to come in the door thinking like you do.
Right.
Sometimes it's good they don't. You know?
Right.
Put that framework in place, make sure people are accountable for it.
Right.
Then roll.
Absolutely. What kind of system do you guys have in place? Do you use a checklist?
So when we're bringing on a new client, we have a clear professional service agreement. So the professional service agreement lays out design cost. It lays out fees for estimating and pre-construction. There's at least 2 weeks of work. It's not 2 weeks working every day on it, but it's sending out bids, working with the owner to decide what specs and finishes will be included. And then it's a kind of an a la carte process where they're going through and they're saying, okay, well, maybe we want those higher hardwoods and we're going to take the lesser appliance package. And so it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of work from our team. And then from there, if they sign up and they sign the professional service agreement laying out, here's how it works, here's the timeline that you should expect on design and pre-construction, they are directed to Builder Trend. So Builder Trend is like, you mentioned Monday.com. It's like that, but we bring our clients into it as well. So they log in and they say, okay, I'm at the first design meeting. So they're at the first design meeting and they see design process A, and that will take 8 to 10 days. We have design meeting 2. At design meeting 2, X% of fees are due, so forth and so on. And it actually shows them when we'd even start the house. So it will take them all the way from design to start of the house to finish of the house potentially. And that gets adjusted as we go. But that way they understand, okay, I'm in this point on the process and I've got to get to here and then we're going to start the house. And it's all about just communicating with them so they understand what's expected of them and us.
And I think putting a price on some of these phases is important. And we talked about this as a team recently because sometimes people want to go back to phase A when they're in phase B and they might not realize the time that it might be taking. So when you put a dollar sign on it, then they're like, okay, I really need to make a decision.
So does that mostly go into the whole design aspect of things? We were talking about going back, and what do people go back for?
That's mostly in like plan design.
Gotcha.
When they're working with the architect.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's a lot of changes that people can make and like really see where their price is going to land / ceiling height and windows and all that
Gotcha.
jazz.
So we want to close a phase before we go to the next phase.
Right.
And the key is we want to be working efficiently and we want to give everyone the opportunity to have their adjustments and get the design right. But if we've done that and we're at phase C, if we have to go back to phase A, it should be expected that you pay for it.
Well, I think one thing that, like, we've talked about communication a lot, and I know I don't know if I only speak for myself in this, but I think at the end of the day, when my transaction is closing or when it has closed, whether or not the transaction has been a perfect transaction or whether we've had a bump in the road or maybe we've had a major issue come up, at the end of the day, the majority of my clients still end up happy and satisfied, and they leave great reviews. And I think that speaks a lot to how the communication really plays out to make it, even if it hasn't been a perfect transaction, it feels like, we've known that Sarah was in control. We've known that we've had all the confidence. And so it's still, in my opinion, can be up there as close to perfect as we can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not sandbagging, but you're setting yourself up for success.
Right.
Now, don't be the cabinet guy that says, we're going to get you that in 5 weeks, and they really can get it to you in 3 weeks. That's irritating. But set your standard, hit the standard, or exceed it, and then you're going to just look like a hero.
Yeah.
Good old local hero.
Sarah Bennett. Local girl made good.
Read it here.
Sing
first.
us a little something.
Oh gosh. I'll sing a little church song to close us out since we started with church.
Amen.
No, just kidding.
Oh,
I was ready.
so is that.
No.
You have to go to Columbia First Baptist Church. That's where you'll find her.
Find me there, folks.
They know.
Blue robe and all.
Talking about perfection, I think it's silly for us to say that we're not going to chase perfection. I think it's silly to say that we're going to be perfect.
Right.
Do you think there's a balance of the two?
Yes, I do. I have confidence in balance of many of things in life. So I say yes because we're striving for that perfection, for that experience for our clients. And then we know that when there's going to be an issue, that we will handle it accordingly to make it feel as though we didn't skip that beat.
Right.
Because again, I think everyone's very understanding that we're human, things happen. It's all about how you handle it. So I think that there could be a balance.
Sarah?
I agree with everything Alisha said. So I really can't add any more to it. Like, I think she nailed it.
I think not accepting the status quo.
Yes.
You know,
Definitely setting
for
yourself
you.
up
Yeah.
to a higher standard. Yeah.
Our high standard is different than high standard of a builder in Florida, perhaps, of someone building a $20 million house.
Oh yeah.
But it's not getting complacent where your high standard is. Making actions to improve that standard and get better a little bit each day.
But we do all have that in common, I think, is that I don't think any of us are complacent people at all. And we're always striving to be better and to learn and to grow. So I think we have that in common.
It's amazing how many people are successful despite themselves. I mean, there are some lazy people you can't get a hold of on the phone and this, that, and the other. So if we're all having the mindset of get better every day, what are you going to do? You can't stop that. Well, this has just been lovely. If I could steal that from Sarah.
It's just been a real treat.
A real treat.
Real treat. All right.
Goodbye.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Design Build Sell, follow us on Instagram at Design Build Sell Podcast. If you'd like to check us out on our website, it's designbuildsellpod.com. From there, you can see our YouTube channel, our Instagram, and directory to our Apple podcast.
So listen, y'all, if you like our podcast, this little thing that we do, which we still are figuring it out ourselves, just leave us a good review. Pew, 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 pew. I don't know why I shot you.
I was like, I don't want no trouble.